Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference.
I am so thrilled to have Tami Crea of Sales Strategy, Savvy Sales Strategy, with me today. I've had some conversations. I think I have some friends who are working with Tami now, and I just really love your energy from our previous conversations, and I'm so grateful that you're here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you have been an entrepreneur. You've had different roles, but you've primarily lived in the world of entrepreneurship. And not only that, but you've been successfully doing it for 40 years, which most people cannot say.
Yeah, it's a little scary to say it, though.
What did that start like? Did you always know that that was going to be part of your journey, that you wanted to work for yourself?
You know, the funny thing is that it wasn't as much that as when I was in high school back in the day. They used to, and I don't know if they still do this or not, they give you these lists of occupations for people to figure out what they want to do, if they want to go on to college, if they want to go to a different kind of school, if they don't want to go on, what do they want to do when they're done in the high school? And I mean, these are pages and pages of occupations. And I went through those, and I went through them, and I went through them again, and I went, I don't like any of them. I don't know what I'm going to do. So when I got done with high school, I went to college because it gave me another 4 years to what I wanted to do. And while I was there, I had been on my high school newspaper and things like that. And I started getting part-time jobs writing for some of the local freebie papers. Back then, print was a really big thing, and they were everywhere. And so I got a job as an editor of one of them, and I wrote articles, and I had a portfolio. And the guy that I was writing for, after we'd worked together for a while, he started introducing me to various aspects of what he was doing. And he said, "You're too smart to get a job. You should do something on your own." And so, I did the only thing that I knew how to do at that point, which was a month before I graduated from university. I opened my own business with a parenting magazine. I was coupled with my sister and my mother. My mother was a teacher. She'd been an early childhood educator and a kindergarten teacher. And so we started that. And we realized that we really were terrible at selling ads. And so we were, back then, there was no Macintosh. There was typesetting equipment. We had a huge lease. We had to pay for it every month. So we started selling graphic design in order to pay the bills.
Okay.
And, it just, things just kept happening. And I just kept walking that way. And so I just never looked back. I never really had a job. So just kept moving forward.
Yeah. What do you think now, looking back, are some of the positives and negatives that have come out of never working for somebody else?
The positives are, I understand the struggles of anybody trying to start a business and trying to balance family. I have 2 boys, a husband. I raised my kids from working from home. I started working from home in 1989, which was pretty early for working from home. Before that, I had an office and the whole thing. But once I had my first son, balancing working, being with him. I mean, my mom did some daycare for me because I couldn't, do everything I was doing and not have any help at all. And just balancing everything, so I can really relate to the struggles that a lot of people, in particular women, have with starting their own business. The downside is so many people, I came out of the corporate career, so I have all of this background and all of this experience. I've never had a corporate career.
Yeah.
Well, my idea of being somebody that you should listen to comes from 40 years of starting businesses, failing in business because print became not a thing industry. So the industry died under me and I had to go do something else. Figuring out what I love doing, which actually did eventually turn out to be sales. But, what can I say? But it gives you resilience. And I know a lot of people that quit. I know a lot of people that just said, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to do this. And I'm going to go and get a corporate job, or I'm going to go and, and for me, that just was never an option because I still had that memory of I didn't like any of them.
Well, and that's like, I could look at a list of that and go, oh, I kind of like that one. I kind of like that one. I kind of like that one, but not necessarily like any of them enough to want to work in them for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So it was clear that your path was take your own, the road less traveled, if you will, to find your own, and to innovate. Because that's something that I hear from some of my colleagues when I'm like, oh, I'm not really doing PR anymore. I'm really focused on this. And one person said, oh, you're just an innovator. And I'm like, you're always innovating. I'm like, thank you for saying it that way. Because sometimes I think, is it really innovative? Because as entrepreneurs, especially on your journey, like you said, you had to reinvent and you had to figure out what was going to work now based on what assets there are, what you have access to, print, dyeing. So how did you discover that you actually enjoyed sales when it was something that when you started your first business, you were like, nope, this is not something I like?
It's interesting. I grew into it. What it came down to is I have always been the one that talks to everybody. Yeah, I mean, I'd be standing in line at the grocery store and I'd strike up a conversation with people. And once I finally realized that sales is nothing more than having a conversation. In sales, it is a led conversation and it is a directed conversation, but it really is still nothing more than a conversation. Then all of a sudden, this sales stopped being a big, scary thing. And I started looking at it as something to be worried about. And I just talk to people. And that's just always worked for me.
One of the things that you call this, which I think is really important, because we've talked about this before, it's sales with integrity. Right? Because I still, to this day, I mean, I think even today, got the LinkedIn requests that for people just cold calling me. I get people scrape and find your email address and they email you at every email address that you own, which, you might have a couple personal ones, a couple different business ones. I teach, so I have one. And I'm like, how are they getting this information? And do they really think I'm going to respond yes to when their first email to me is, hey, I want to sell you this service?
That's the thing. It's right there. It's, getting conversations going like in the DMs and LinkedIn, which I do all the time with people. And I have people tell me, hey, I don't like you coming at me. I don't, this is not what LinkedIn is for. And I always think to myself, well, LinkedIn is for making connections and having conversations. And every time that I go out and I send an email, a cold email, or I send a DM to someone, it's honestly with the same feeling that I have of having a sales conversation. I want to know more about the other person. Right. I want to know if I can help them. I want to know if they're struggling with anything. I want to know if they can help me. I want to know what they're doing. I want to know why they're doing it. I love people's stories. I just love people's stories. I always love hearing about where they came from, why they are where they are. And this is the thing that people don't always understand when someone reaches out to you in LinkedIn. If they don't say, buy my thing, but if they say, hey, this is who I am, who are you?
Right.
It's not necessarily a sales opening.
Right.
And I have people tell me all the time that that's a sales opening. I'm like, it's not what this is about.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see that as a sales opening. That now, if the next thing they do is turn around and say, and I have this, then it could be. But I think that can be a really organic conversation. And I can make great connections with people via LinkedIn. That's how you and I connected with LinkedIn.
Exactly. So the thing of it is that why people think that I'm pitching is because I tell them who I am and what I do. And what I do is salesy, right? So they think I'm trying to pitch, and what I'm not doing is pitching. What I'm trying to do is to say, hey, this is who I am. I'm looking at your profile. I'm seeing who you are. And I'm wondering, and I've said this in many, many outreaches, I just would like to know if there's any synergy between us. Because it's not always about selling somebody something. It's how can you collaborate on something? How can you help someone that's frustrated and stuck? How can you help them get from here to here? I just was on a call with somebody yesterday. She was so frustrated with where she was at. It wasn't about making a sale. It was about, can I help her break her mindset? Because her deal, well, it was very complicated. But one of the things, and this is something I find over and over again, is that she was struggling because she wasn't charging enough for 30 years of experience. And so she was going, I can't make enough money to survive, but I can't take on any more clients because I'm drowning in work. And I'm like, with your permission, I'd like to give you some suggestions. And by the time we got off the call, she's like, I've never thought of it this way before. And that's what I'm always trying to do.
You did the same thing with me when we had our first conversation. I remember you said, do I have your permission? And I was like, but that is such a gentle way to tell me that you're going to tell me what it really is. But I loved it. And I loved the feedback and input you gave me, because you're right. I think particularly as women in business and entrepreneurs, we have this, even though we believe that we have the ability, we still have the imposter syndrome of, oh, we can't really charge that much. We want to be nice. We want to be gentle. That's our role. We're the caregivers. You can still be the caregiver and also charge what you're worth.
Exactly. And the problem is that if you don't charge what you're worth, you're going to end up not being able to serve the people you want to serve.
Yeah.
Because there's so many psychological things behind it. If people don't value you because you're too cheap, then they won't listen and they won't make the progress forward. If you don't value yourself enough to put that monetary cap on it so that you can have less clients, or that you have enough money to outsource part of what you're doing, which was one of the suggestions that I had for her, then again, you can't serve as many people. So you just can't make your goals.
Yeah.
And if you can't make your goals because you're charging too little, then you're not really in integrity to yourself. It's not about overcharging either. Mm-hmm. It's about doing something that makes sense for everybody that's involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can be really hard to figure out when you see people offering similar things to your own program or project at all price points with varied levels of experience. And some might be able to charge more because they're really popular on social media, right? So how do you help your clients navigate and market as like, this is really what you should be charging. This is your ideal client.
It's a tough one. It honestly is. And sometimes it may take 2 or 3 tries to figure out who the ideal client is in particular, because we have some clients that we've struggled with that when they really have no idea. And the biggest problem that I have is working with life coaches that say I'm a life coach, so obviously I can help anybody. The problem with that is no, you can't. And you're not going to, again, back to doing your best work. You can't do that if you're not working in an area that you feel comfortable in. So a lot of conversation again, a lot of talking, a lot of, you've had some clients. Who were the clients that you did the best job with? Who are the ones that were able to change the most? And all of these conversations and then testing messaging out to people. And if it doesn't land well, being willing to shift, being willing to say, okay, that market didn't work. They didn't respond to your language. So let's try another one. And then with pricing, it's pretty easy because you just start looking at the real marketplace, not your little lane, but look at the entire marketplace and make some of those collaboration calls. Talk to people that are doing something that's somewhat similar to what you're doing, not to steal anything from them, but just to go, hey, if you're in the same area, a lot of times you can offer each other advice. Hey, I found this program that was a fantastic thing that helped me organize XYZ. So it's not about being out of integrity again, but you can start to see pricing. And some people have pricing on their websites. I never recommend it because most people change their pricing frequently in the first year of working with us. But, there's ways of seeing that. And then I never recommend being the highest in the market unless that's who you think you are, in which case that's great. Find the price point you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I tell people is this: get a salesperson to sell for you, because it's really to represent yourself. And I've seen coaches fail simply because they couldn't say the number that they really feel they'd like to be worth.
Yeah. I think that's such a big hurdle for all of us. Like you said, there are people out there who that's not a problem for, but I think the majority of us, we're scared to say the number. We hesitate, or we're willing to discount it immediately. And that's not a good place to be in.
No.
So can you talk about how, because you've worked in high ticket sales, you've helped coach people for quite a bit of the last part of your career, and under Savvy Sales Strategy, what does that look like now?
Well, really what it looks like now is we're doing pretty much a done-for-you setup of the sales and marketing side of the business. And the reason that we chose to go that way is because there's really, in anybody who sells the way that you and I are talking now, that an online video call, you need people coming in that are interested in finding out about your services. You need people that are setting up those appointments. And then you need somebody on the other end of that that's going to close the sale. Mm-hmm. So you need lead generation, appointment setting, and sales closing. It's very, very hard for people, unless they are in sales, mm-hmm. to be able to do all of those things. And so what we found when we offered pieces of it was that people really couldn't succeed because they got so bogged down in one of the triad. And so something failed in the middle or somewhere. And also they, in trying to do that, were too busy to serve the clients that they brought on. They need to go off and coach. They need to change people's lives, but they need a constant, full pipeline of people to come in. And AI is great, but it is not going to do everything for you. You're not going to give a prompt to ChatGPT and suddenly have closed clients on your doorstep.
Right.
Yes, it helps everything these days. And we do ethically use AI in what we do, a lot of it, because it does put things on automatic and it can scale up faster, but it has to be watched. It has to be trained. There's all of these things with it that it's almost as much work as just getting a human being and working with it. And when it comes to sales closing, again, you have to have conversations. And so, all of the people that we work with are North American closers, and they're all trained in conversational sales, not high pressure, not, go get them, but conversational sales that bring the person that you're talking to their decision on their own.
Yeah.
They can figure out, is this really the right thing for me or not? Because you know what? You have to start at that level because things don't always work right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to work with each other. Sometimes the client doesn't know what they want. Sometimes we mess up, and I'm certainly not saying we're perfect in everything that we do, but we'll fix it. We'll always fix it.
Yeah.
And we'll always help that client come to their understanding of what they need. As long as you have something in the beginning that sets that up, that you're a team, you're right. Working together on making this whole thing work.
Yeah. We've mentioned the word integrity a lot. And I think that you telling me right now that you've had this career of being able to not ever have to work for somebody else, just for your clients, right? And you still don't always get it right out of the gate when you're working with somebody new. That tells me how high your integrity really is, because many people wouldn't say something like that on a show. And I love the fact that we have to be willing to be vulnerable with each other. We have to be willing to share, because that's part of our growth and part of our business growth too.
It is.
We often have to figure out, what are we going to pivot to? You had to do that. You had to move out of publishing. So,
yeah, no, it really is. I mean, here's the thing of the pros and the cons. I've never had anybody tell me do it this way. So I've just made up what allows me to sleep at night.
That's such a great marker, though, because I think that's one of the things a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is, are we doing the right thing? The anxiety that keeps us up at night over whatever decision we might have had to make that day. So that is such a great framing to think about, will this help me sleep at night? Yes. Yeah. No, that should be a pretty easy answer for most people.
Because I'm one of those people that when something does go wrong, and if I have a client that I'm off kilter with or something, it will keep me up at night. Everything will, because I chew on it and I worry over it and my brain won't shut down. And I know that about myself. And so, and I've had plenty of nights that I have trouble sleeping. The best ideas also come at 3 a.m. So that's all right.
That's true. Who are the typical clients that you work with right now? You said coaches. Is it primarily women? Is it a mix?
It's a mix. I mean, my business partner, Abigail, she and I met when we were both in high ticket sales. And then we were hired to do sales at an event. And we spent a whole weekend, sitting there saying we'd do it this way and that way instead of the way that it was being done, and decided we should go into business together.
Nice.
And it was really fun because it was like finding the sister that I never knew I had. And so, I mean, we see each other only a handful of times a year, but she is very, very involved in a number of women's organizations. I mean, this story did have an end. She's very involved in a number of women's organizations. And so we have probably a higher preponderance of women clients. That does not mean that we have a problem with working with guys. It's just kind of the way that it happens. And women tend to be drawn to us because of the fact that we're women in sales and marketing. And there aren't as many of us as there are men. When I go and try and hire sales closers, I'll get if I run a job ad, I'll get 85% men, maybe 15% women that apply because they're just not as many in the field.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. And we have both men and women as closers. We have male and female clients, but we do have more women than men.
And are there ever clients that you have to turn down because you don't think that they're ready or they're just not a right fit for you culturally?
Yeah. I mean, tell me a business that hasn't done that, or if they haven't, they should have, and that they regret not doing it. Sometimes we just don't see it early enough. Sometimes we have to change the relationship rather than what we first thought we were going to be doing. We actually have to lay some different ground rules or just change our pathway a little bit, not just in who their ideal client is, but even in the way that we're working together. Because, there have been clients that I could not cope with that Abigail was fabulous with, and clients that did not resonate with her that I could take care of and help grow. So, a lot of it does have to do with personality. Absolutely. Yeah. And as a business owner, these are things you really should pay attention to. If you're on a call with someone and you're getting a bad feeling about it, or you're feeling overwhelmed is okay if you think you can research and you can figure it out. But overwhelmed to the point of, I don't even know what this person is talking about. I mean, I just remember a conversation I had maybe even 10 years ago with someone that was talking about doing agile sales. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. This is not for me. And I referred him somewhere else because I knew I was not going to do a good job with something I couldn't comprehend.
That is also something that's really hard usually for people to do. I know that when I had my PR firm, there's a couple clients that I took in because they were referrals from somebody else. One was supposed to be getting grant money that was supposed to pay me, and then it just fell through. And I sent them an invoice, and they said, "No, I don't owe you any money," because it was a whole situation where I should have extricated myself when I realized that they're waiting for future money, right?
Yeah.
Another one kept increasing the scope of work. Yep. And then some other things happened in their life that were not related to us, but they decided to cancel all of the work that they were doing. And we're like, we're building you websites for like 3 different projects and we're in the middle of everything. So it's a missed opportunity. But those are both situations where if I'd listened to my gut, probably I would have shut it down a lot faster.
That's it.
Yeah. But I think sometimes, to your point, like you just get caught up and you're thinking, no, this is going to work out. It's going to be fine. Or I really need this check right now.
And we've all done it. We've all done it. I mean, there's no question about that. And it really is. The other thing is just being upfront of, hey, this isn't working. What can we do? Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that I'm the expert in what I do, but you're the expert in what you do. And how can we make this work? And if it's not going to work, then maybe the best thing for us to do is to part ways right now. And that's a really hard thing to say. And I'm really not good at it, but I'm getting better at it because I would much rather have them go and find somebody that is doing a better job for them than me not being able to fulfill. So, it's hard. It's a really hard thing to do. And that lesson I'm still learning. I really am. I think that's one that I'll want to learn all my life because you always want to make it work.
Yeah.
Want to make it great. But sometimes it's just not going to be.
Yeah. That's something I think this has been not 2024, but just the past year. That has been a big lesson to me of, you know what? It's okay to say, I thought this was going to work out, but it's just not the right fit, right? Or we're supposed to work together in a different way and have those conversations to just be honest with ourselves because yeah.
Hard, but it's a good thing to do. And the other one is when the client doesn't do what they say that they're going to do, and yet they think they are. Oh, that's a real hard one because I've had people go, well, but you said XYZ, and I record every single call I'm on. And there's a reason for that. And I encourage everybody who does any kind of sales or client interaction this way to record calls. I have everything transcribed just automatically as well because I'm better at reading than sorting through a video.
Right.
There's been times when clients have said to me, well, last week you said you would do XYZ. And I've gone, I don't think I would have said that.
Wow.
Because that doesn't sound like me. And then, you can go back and you can go, no, but I can see where you might have gotten it from. I said this. And it just helps. It helps because people's memories, and my memory doesn't always work. I remember what I think I want to remember. It's always good to remember what was really said.
Well, I want to turn to your process. I go to your website and you are here to help people scale. And it says you'll guarantee an additional 50,000 new sales in the next 100 days completely done for you, or we'll get you there. Wow. I mean, that's a very compelling offer, I think. So how does that work? Like, is there a favorite, and I'd love to hear a case study or two if you're willing to share.
Well, there's caveats to every offer. Of course there are.
Yeah.
The first thing is, and I'm very upfront about this, you have to allow me to put the price of whatever it is you're doing where it should be. Not where I think it's going to be easy to sell or, whatever. It's where I think it should be for what you're giving it, or that we're going to stack more value into it. Because to make that promise, we work with offers that are somewhere between $7,500 and $15,000 in terms of sale. So to make someone $50,000 with a $10,000 program is not all that difficult, if you want to know the truth. But the other thing is that the client needs to have patience, because frequently those sales are all made in the last month, because we're building, we're seasoning, we're getting people in the pipeline, we're talking to them. And when clients get, this isn't working in, like week 5, it's kind of like, well, we have a problem now because you want to change everything. And if you change everything, then we really are taking a bunch of steps back. So it has to be, that promise is there. It has to be someone that's willing to listen, that's willing to take advice, that is responsive. So, we do meet and we get things going, and that is definitely willing to take advice. So yes, it's a bold statement, but if the client does their part and we do our part, it's really not that hard, because what we're doing is we're finding that ideal client that's out there. We're talking to all of those leads. And then again, we're closing those sales. And I can't make that promise if someone comes to me and says, I only want a salesperson, or I only want you to do lead generation. I'm going to close all the sales, because then I don't know. I don't have control of the entire system. So it has to be our entire done for you system. In order to make that work. Because it just, we get off track, or we don't have the right audience, or if they tell me that they're fantastic at closing sales and then they tell me that all of the leads are garbage, and it's, I know they're not, because I listened to some of the conversations along the way. And then, and I ask everybody, of course, to record calls so that we can look at that. But clients often get in their own way. We're not perfect. So the end result of that is that if we can't do it in the first 4 months, then we don't charge them any more money until we get them there. And we keep working. Yeah. So, it's a bold statement, but it's really not when you start to break it down and look at it. It's very doable.
And is there a case that you can share with us, even if you don't use identifying information, that somebody that they knew what they wanted, they put their trust in your system, and they were just, the results were even more than they could have ever imagined?
Oh, yeah. I mean, funny thing is, one of the areas that we worked in before and that has worked really, really well, we're working with one right now, and that's we have a company that publishes books, in particular for speakers. Speakers always need a book. I mean, that's a really nice audience to find. And so we were able to reach out, and I mean, within the first, say 4 weeks, it might have even been less. We were just clicking over appointment after appointment after appointment, because we got the messaging bang on. We were able to sit down with them, we were able to work with them and get that messaging where it needed to be. We developed a very niche audience of women speakers, and even added in a little bit from, because they're big on this in the Christian publishing field. So we were able to look at this and go, okay, this is a very defined audience. So we were able to go out, find that audience, worked up some beautiful messaging of why they should talk to somebody. And that it's just easy. But, we've done the same thing with coaches, with consultants. Book publishers are a little bit, different than that. But it's just one that was like the easiest one I've done in a long time, which is like the mind. But again, it's, the coaches have a really dialed in sense of who they are and who they want to serve and what they're going to do with that. We had another client here. I'll give you the other side of it. We had another client just recently that every time we tried something, she freaked out about what was this doing to her reputation because it wasn't her, and stopped us. So we'd barely get going and then it would stop. And then we try something else and no, it was like she was afraid to reach out. She was afraid to be seen without it just being her. She was afraid to say, I have a team. And
definitely some inner work she needed to do there.
Yeah, it could be. But, those are the things. Those are the places where we go, we're not able to perform to that guarantee because it has to be a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
So case studies can be good, case studies can be bad, but, they teach. They teach what you need to be doing and how you need to be doing it.
Wow. And when you hire, we've talked about this just on a one-on-one conversation. So I'd love for you to talk about that because I thought that was one of the most amazing things because as women, as moms, right, we both had this situation. So I'd love for you to talk about your hiring process because you said most of the people you get are men, but
yeah, but honestly, I will interview any female closer that comes across my path. I will not hire every female closer that comes across my path. I've actually had my LinkedIn jobs shut down for literally placing a job that said we were looking for a closer for a client that wanted feminine energy because I was told we were breaking the EOE rules of hiring, which, a guy can have feminine energy.
Exactly.
And this client would have taken either a man or a woman as long as they, that was the phrase that we used. So, no, I will put a job out there. All of our closers are, like I said, North American, USA or Canada. I always have to include the Canadians. We have quite a few of them. And I've never had a client that's objected to having a Canadian, but I'm sure I'll run into one somewhere along the line. But anyway, the thing is that the women that come to me, I feel bad for them in a lot of ways because there's so many of these schools out there now that are churning out quote closers.
Oh,
what they're doing is they're giving them the basics and they're giving them a script and they're doing role plays so that they can learn how to have conversations. And then they need to be trained when we hire them because, they have no experience. And I had one woman that applied to work with us and she was extraordinarily arrogant about the fact that she was the best one in the entire class in closing role plays. And I'm like, if you can't close a role play, we've got a problem. But she, again, I'm sure she had a great deal of value and worth, but she had absolutely no experience in the field whatsoever. And she wanted way more than I could provide for her. And so, that's a good one where I had to say, I'm really sorry, I can't offer you a job.
Yeah.
But, what I do is, again, listen and have that conversation. Our appointment setters, we hire actually offshore if someone is very concerned about price. We weren't before, but we're doing it now because we've had people come to us and say, I can't pay that much. And we have some very good relationships with people in other parts of the world. But more of our staff there's one group in particular we're working with that is a bunch of stay-at-home moms that want to interchange with each other, which is fine as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
And so they can do appointment setting.
Nice.
And that's great. It is a different price point, though. We had said everything was going to be North American, and then we did run into people who said, hey, I've already got a Philippine EA. I'm very comfortable working with people in other cultures. I have absolutely no problem with it, and I don't want to pay US dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And we pay our people offshore better than a lot of companies do, but we don't pay them the same as it costs them a lot less to live where they live than here.
Right.
And so there is an option depending on what people want to do. And if they have their own staff that we can work with, that's okay too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our hiring process, again, is to look at the individual situation and say, what's best for the client? What's best for our relationship here in order to get you where you want to go?
How much have things changed versus stayed the same in sales in the past 40 years?
Really, in sales, nothing. Sales is having a conversation. Back when I first started and I had ended up in sales doing the magazines that I was doing because I had a magazine publishing company, And I would walk up and down the streets and I would poke my head into people's businesses and talk to the owners and offer them advice on what they could do with their business in order to grow their business so they could actually afford to buy an ad. And I had the same conversations that I'm having now with people that are in business. So yes, it's all changed, obviously, because you're not out there on the streets. You're not out there having those conversations. And I mean, some people still do, going to networking meetings and mixers and things like that in person, which are great. But now you can reach a much larger audience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the biggest thing is your focus does not have to be the hyper-focused local, which it was back when I first started. Now my focus is the entire United States of America. But the conversations really aren't that different.
Mm-hmm.
People still have their dreams of what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. And I still love hearing people's stories.
Yeah. Yeah, the storytelling, that never gets old when it's done right. People are willing to share.
Yep. Yeah, that really is. That's always the most fun of any part of my day is listening to, people, how they got started, what they're doing and what their dreams are, what their vision is.
Mm-hmm.
Many people are so committed to what the lives that they're changing and how they're changing them. It's phenomenal. It really is.
What is one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who's thinking about embarking on their journey? Because I feel like many people, including myself, sometimes they go, well, that seems like it's oversaturated. But then on the other hand, I'm going, but not everybody has the same experience that I have. So what advice would you offer to somebody who's thinking about going into this line of work?
Figure out what your differentiation factor is, because everyone has one. Everyone does something differently. Like I said, even my business partner and I at times were able to do different things with different clients because you are you and I am me, and we're going to see the world a little bit differently. So I would find that and don't quit. Don't listen to everybody else that says, why are you changing that again? Well, because my market changed. It's okay. You got to be able to take the hits, the punches, because there's going to be a lot of people that tell you this is the wrong thing. Why are you doing this? This is not stable. This is not this. This is not that. We've had massive layoffs in this country, and unemployment. Is having a job more stable than what you're doing yourself? Maybe. But, what's in here? And how much does it mean to you? If it means enough to you, don't quit. Find another way. Study. There are so many things out there that you can learn for nothing, just simply by taking courses, by not just watching webinars, because you're only going to get a small piece of what you need to know, but by doing your own investigatory work. The internet is a fabulous place to dig deep into finding out whatever it is you need to find out about. And don't learn from just one source. That's one of the big things that's changed, is that you have access to so much, that you can learn so much. But you've got to relate it to yourself. Don't take someone else's thing and just follow it, because it won't work for you. It works for them. Mm-hmm. You're going to need to learn a whole bunch of stuff, and you're going to need to figure out which pieces work for you. Yeah. And always stand in your own power with that. That is who you are. And that's the way that you can help people.
Tami, besides savvysalesstrategy.com, where people can learn more about services, see testimonials, is there anywhere else that you want people to go to? Do you want them to follow you on LinkedIn to learn more about you?
They can, absolutely. I am under Tami, Tami, J, Crea, Crea. But the other thing, if anybody wants a conversation, they can book a call with me. It's schedule with Tami, that Tami again, schedulewithtami.com. That's my calendar. Amazing. And any spot, I live and die by my calendar. And so if time comes up as being available, I am happy to talk to anybody. And it's not a sales call. This is the thing I tell everybody. I never get onto it with the idea of it's a sales call. It is a conversation. That's it.
And do you have a favorite quote or mantra, family motto?
People always ask that. The thing of it is, I have so many different things that I follow and so many different things that I fall in love with. My favorite person, I've got to admit, is Zig Ziglar, who said, nothing starts until somebody sells something. So that's kind of my mantra.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation and seeing you again.
Yes.
And having you talk about what's changed, what hasn't changed in sales, how it really just needs to start with a conversation.
Yeah, it's still human.
Oh.
And people forget that. And that's the thing with the AI now. And we need to be very careful that we don't get away from the fact that it really is human, good and bad, but it's really human.
Could not agree more. Thank you to everybody who is watching or listening to this episode with me, your host, Annika Jackson, and Tami Crea of Savvy Sales Success. Let me say that 5 times fast.
Savvy Sales Strategy.
Yes. Oh, yes. Strategy. See? I was just thinking that you take us to success immediately. So, yeah. With that, I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story with you.
Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.